Hi, it's Paul Antonelli here. Welcome to another episode of the Ideal Business Podcast. I'm producing this podcast as per the last podcast you might have listened to in just outside Uluru in the central desert of Australia. So I thought it would be really apt to talk a little bit about something that because I've been effectively, and you're probably aware of that, I've been effectively a nomadic business owner for the last almost 2 years, and I just want to share some insights into what's that been like doing that. Obviously, building an ideal business, you know, we're all different. We all want to do different things. And for me, being able to enjoy these locations, where I am at the moment is a remote camping location out in the middle of nowhere. I really enjoy that, and the only way that I could effectively do that was to effectively really be nomadic, was to be able to move around. So I've really enjoyed doing that. I think in the last you've probably seen, I've got this small cool bean van. I've got the Defender, which is sitting behind me, and it enables me. These are pieces of kit that enable me to go and do what I need to do and travel around. But how have I organised everything? How does it all work? Do I get bored? You know, people ask me, am I retired? Which I'm not. Do I get bored? I don't. I actually don't get bored. What's the sort of rhythm? What do I get into? So I'm just going to take you through how that works. Well, for me, the first thing about this scene is that it's just something that I do like to do. I've in the last it's just been over 12 months in the last stint that I've been travelling. I've travelled almost 40,000 kilometres in every corner of the country, and mostly the remote tracks. You know, so everywhere from the northern point in Darwin and Northern Territory to the southern end of Tasmania, and every other area through the deserts, through the Santo, up the coast, all over the place. And so because of the nature of how I like to travel, most of the time, I'd say probably 70-80% of the time, even more, I'm off the grid, which means I'm quite remote. There's no internet reception, and there's no connection to being able to communicate. So the first thing that happens is, if you were to organise yourself to be able to operate and run your businesses like this, you'd have to firstly go, well, I'm going to be off the grid for, large chunk of the time. How's it going to operate? And what happens when you do this is it makes you look at your business and then you realise how dependent potentially you are linked into your business. So I've been working on this process. I've been doing this for a number of years now. It's been years, probably 5 or 6 years I've been able to travel and move around. But effectively, the rhythms that I sort of get into is, I've got everything. I'm very self-contained. I can really be off the grid for 7 to 10 days. I've got power, solar power. I've got water. I've got plenty of fuel. I've got food. I've got everything that I need. So I can sort of disappear. And the way that I organise my movements is that I have these rhythms that I like to sort of do. And a typical rhythm in the morning, it's as I'm producing this podcast, it's just on 8 a.m. It's pretty fresh out here. I think the temperature's 12. When I got up this morning, it was 6 degrees. So I have a sort of a standard rhythm. And for me, I'm not really I don't feel like I'm on holidays. People say, oh, how long you're on holidays? I'm not really on holidays. I'm just choosing to be nomadic at this point in time. And it might change, but at this stage, I've been enjoying it, and I am enjoying it. And so I sort of blend in. I feel like I've got to have a purpose and be productive. So if I'm just traveling around the countryside with no purpose, then I don't think it would have the same appeal. So not last year, but the year before, when I traveled through the Kimberley, I spent 6 months, I wrote a book, the Ideal Business book. So I went through that process. I'm just wrapping that out now. That's been a bit of a work in progress. So that was really good. I'd get up in the mornings and I'd be able to, I tried to do 1,000 words or 500 words, and it was great because I was out of cycle. So I felt it was really productive. And what I do is because the team knows that I'm remote, I've got a really good team in the businesses, different businesses that I'm running. They're a great team. And so typically I organise any of my connection points to take place on a Monday and Tuesday. So there's certain things and functions that I still do in the business. I don't spend a lot of hours in the business operating on the businesses. So the way I've organised it is Monday and Tuesdays are days that I would connect up with the team, and most of that time it's connecting up with them, not really checking in as such. It's just having conversations with them, finding what they need from me, if there's any things that they would like to discuss, because they are very autonomous, and they're all based all over the place anyway. So when I look at the team, we've got people in every part of Australia, people overseas. We've got my marketing manager Liam in New Zealand, travelling around. So people are everywhere. So it's not unusual for us. This is how we roll. This is how we operate. And so Mondays and Tuesdays are the days that I aim, and my team sort of knows that, to be in range. It's not always possible. It's not always possible, but I'd say most of the time I've been able to do that. That gives me a window of about 6 to 7 days to go off grid and be a little bit remote. And so being able to schedule meetings, for me, being able to schedule my meetings on those 2 days and make myself available works really well. And so that means that I can do, and the things that I'll aim to do is connect up with any team members, anyone that wants to catch up, even whether it's a phone call or a Zoom call or whatever it is. I'll do some admin. If I produce content, which I've been doing, I upload it. I just sort of take that time to connect, do any of the activity that needs to be done. Just yesterday, I was in Uluru, which is Ayers Rock in the centre of Australia, and I had documents I need to sign. We're purchasing some properties at the moment. Had to catch up with the team. I caught up with Animal General Manager. So I just did a whole bunch of things, and it's sort of a nice rhythm. I find that rhythm works really, really well. And then the rest of the time, so that enables me to stay engaged, provide support to the team, and they know there's a peg in the ground when we can connect and communicate, which is a really good way to work. And then the rest of the time I sort of focus on, and it's amazing how when you're out here in remote locations like this, your mind's really clear. There's less clutter. We all have clutter. I always talk about that with my family, and I'm the worst of it. If you go home, I've got stuff everywhere. There's stuff here, stuff there. And so out here, living in a small van with everything, it feels a bit like a turtle. Everything that you exist with just fits in a van and in the vehicle. You're very decluttered. It's one of the things I really love about traveling like this. You realise how little you actually need. And so as your mind's decluttered, then it opens up your mind to think a bit differently. You sort of reflect on things, and I often come up with some really great realisations, really, really cool realisations when I'm travelling around, and get very, very creative as well. It's just part of the process. And so typically I'll look at what, for me, these times this has been a fantastic opportunity for, not last year, the year before I wrote the book. And then last year I started the process of these podcasts. And if you've been listening to podcasts, you'll know that I've been creating these podcasts all around Australia, pretty much every corner of the country. So it becomes part of my routine, and for me, I feel like I still have to have a sense of purpose and be productive. And so being able to engage with the team, I can help them out with any issues. We can have discussions around things. There's always projects on the trot, so we can engage, and I can stay in touch with what's going on, which is really good. And then I have some functions in the business as well. So creating content at the moment with the Ideal Business, we're sort of building out a little bit of a new program that's coming close to being launched, which we'll share with people soon. And I've been producing training videos, we've been producing content, and I've been doing that as I've been moving around on the road. You just have to be geared for it, have to be set up. I think I've produced, looking at it, over 100 training videos in the last couple of months as I've been moving around, all in different locations, all in different settings, which has been really cool. And we'll share some of that with you. So So for me, I have to be productive, I have to be engaged. There's always some projects on that I want to be part of. But a typical sort of being nomadic has some really cool benefits as a business owner. The first thing, not just as a business owner, but the first thing is I got to spend, I really do get to spend quality time with some of the most important people in my life, which is really good. Because when you're in these sorts, when you're traveling like this, you're really together 24/7, 7 days a week. Sometimes I can drive my wife a bit nuts, but we have a great time. So we get to spend real quality time and experiences. At the moment, I'm on my own. So part of the process is I think it's great to spend quality time. So I've done time with all of my family. My wife's been with me a large part of the travels, but then she wants to re-engage and go back home, which is cool. I've spent time with my 3 kids, Tessa, Carissa and Dante. Individually, they've come up and spent different amounts of time with me, spent time with my team, Matt and Liam as well, in different locations. So it's, and when you engage with people in these settings, it's really different. It's really quality time, and you're really focusing on being present, which I really, really love. So it's been great from that perspective. The second thing I love is you're very grounded. Where I am at the moment, you're always on the ground, always on the ground. So the word grounded, I mean, it has we talk about, do you feel grounded? I do feel really grounded because I step out of the camper onto the dirt, onto the ground every day. The camper has no inside space for living. It's just simply a bed with a kitchen off the back that you lift up. So I spent most of my time outside. So you really feel like you're present, and you feel the cold, which is pretty chilly now. You noticed I'm rubbing my hands. You feel the warmth, you feel the sun on your back, and you're really present to where you are. And every day is different. Every day is different. So it's like having a different scene to exist in each and every day, which I really, really love. And I don't plan much of it. So I don't really have plans. I don't stay at organised campsites. It's always remote locations in the middle of nowhere. And that part of the adventure, of the excitement of, is not knowing what's around the corner and not knowing exactly where I'm going to end up for the night, which I really love. So I love that. So the other benefit of having this rhythm of being nomadic is that your team basically gets used to the fact that you're not around, and they just, and often this is the case with teams and with people that work with you, is that they come back to you for decisions and come back to you for information. They don't really need to, but sometimes when you're there, it's just easy to do that. So what I found is that the team just gets on with it. And, I trust my team implicitly. They're a great bunch of people. We work really well together. And so they just get on and get it done. And so I'm not there to direct and to find out what they're doing. It's more how I support them. And that enables them just to get on with stuff. So in a way, I get out of the way, which is another benefit of not being contactable all the time, Because if you think about your current existence, can anyone in your team contact you at any point in time? Just pick up the phone and ring you. So when that's the case, probably you have more communications and more engagements. So that's another benefit of being traveling. And the rhythms themselves also, from a health perspective, I think it's fantastic. I don't cook on the gas stove. I can't remember the last time I cooked on a gas stove. I'll typically use a fire. There's a fire just behind the camera here. I'll boil a kettle and make a coffee. I cook on a fire at night as well. So every day there's fires. So there's something amazing about fire. It's very raw, very basic. And so, rounding up firewood. So there's all these activities, rounding firewood, making the fire, and then you have to pack up and move and hit the road and work out where you're going to head off next, which is fantastic. I do, from a health perspective, I call it a bit of a smoothie concoction with a whole bunch of vitamins and minerals and stuff, so I maintain health, keep my health up. I aim to do yoga every day if I can. I've got a yoga mat and a blanket that I roll out, so I do yoga every day. I sort of fell out of that rhythm, but I'm back into that rhythm now, which is fantastic. So I keep my health really good. And so part of it, there's so many benefits relating to it from a relationship perspective. It's really good by being able to gauge and have some space. If you can spend some time. From a business perspective, you do extract yourself and you enable your team to rise and expand and become more autonomous, which is fantastic. From a health perspective, there's nothing like it. You're in the fresh air, you're outside, you're part of the elements, much more grounded. And it does give me, for me, it really gives me an appreciation of how little we need, how little we actually need to live and have a comfortable life. It just, it's just been a realisation. I live very simply, and the way that I move around is very basic, but it does show you how little that we actually need, which makes you appreciate the things that you have, more so I think, but also makes you appreciate that they're not really essential, they're not really necessary, they're just nice things to have. They're nice things to have. And so I've been really fortunate, having built what I would consider my ideal business, both ResiCert and the way Invizbiz operates. We've got a property portfolio, we've got a lot of things going on at the moment. Been very lucky that I've been able to organise everything in a way that I can live like this. And this is, I'm currently sort of heading back home. I've got about another 2,000 kilometres and I should be back in a week or 10 days or so. And then this part of the chapter and then I've got things I need to get done and sort of be based back at home, it's sort of like a whole new scene because I haven't been home for a while, which will be great. So I think there's a lot of benefits from effectively being nomadic, which is effectively what I've been doing for probably the last couple of years, travelling around and right through the pandemic that it really didn't affect me. In the last 2 years, last year effectively, I was in every location in the country, every state, every territory, every major capital city, large parts of regional towns, and camping in some of the most spectacular remote locations this country has to offer. So I think it's not for everyone, but it does take us back to basics, and I think there's so many benefits to experiencing this way of being because we're so connected to things and things going on. And I notice that for myself when I'm back home. There's this, and can you come and do this? And there's something going on over here, and there's this, and there's that, and there's maintenance. And then all of a sudden you move away from all that, and you just your whole headspace and your whole time space is decluttered, and you get into a rhythm. As I've been doing this for a fair amount of time now, I've got a very clear rhythm of how it works and what I do. It's very simple, very organised, but it makes it pleasurable. And if you're going to do this type of activity, you do need to spend a bit of time getting yourself organised and set up so that it does work for you. And then that way you can sort of go for a week, a month, 2 months, 3 months, whatever suits, but I'd really highly recommend it. So yeah, that's my take on being nomadic. I've really enjoyed it. And I'll continue to sort of do this. I'm not sure what the plan is. I've got a lot of activity to get through, and potentially now it's time to start looking at some overseas travel and what's going on over there, which would be a bit of fun. All right, thanks for joining me from the central deserts of Australia on this Ideal Business podcast, and I'll catch up with you in the next podcast. Ciao for now.